Welcome to Dev Vlog number uno, where I'm going to be going through my process for this war game, tabletop war games that I'm creating. It's called Conquerors Rest. Tabletop wargaming is a hobby enjoyed by many people around the world, where you put miniatures on the table, on a big table, and you battle it out. You stab. You don't stab. You pretend. You have your miniatures pretend that they fight it out on the table. Oh. Yeah. So, Conquerors Rest is a smaller war game than most, but also not really. It's about a normal size, really. Set in Vashen, which is a continent which I created, which was cool. Vashen is a land split in two. To the east is inhabited land. To the west is the Cataclysm, a sea of grass and rock. An organization known as the Frontiersmen patrol the borders between civilization and the Cataclysm, keeping the peace and keeping track of those who get called by the power that resides in the Cataclysm. The castle on the Abyss is now one of the only main points of interest in the Cataclysm, but the castle wasn't always the epicenter of the Cataclysm. It used to be the ruling seat of Vashen, the Turquoise Palace, sister to the ruling seat of Ivax, continent to the north, Tourmaline Palace. Over time, the Turquoise Palace grew jealous of Ivax's larger lands and thus power, so in an effort to gain an advantage over their sister, they researched a ritual which would summon and bind one of the sea gods to their service. This, of course, did not work, and the immense power unleashed that day killed most living matter in a huge radius. But that is not the end, because the sea god, enraged, chained up the ruling family for all eternity to suffer for the act they had tried to perform. It is now said that the wind is the only thing howling in the Cataclysm. Might need a bit of work for that intro statement. Who knows? But that's a brief introduction to my world that I've created for this game. In this dev blog production manual thing, I'll be going through different things that I'm doing, story, programs I'm using, ways of doing things, all the good stuff on how I'm doing it, how I'm testing it as well. I'll also maybe do some hand reveals where I show you how I'm sculpting miniatures, hit bashing miniatures, photographing miniatures. So, yeah, let's get into it. So, in this episode, I'm going to look at story writing, what I'm doing around narrative for people's games as well as just general story. The program I'm using, InDesign, I will probably go into later in the series, maybe next episode. I'll go into what I know about InDesign. Here we have the Frontiersmen, who are going to be the poster children for the game, basically. Each faction has its own, will have a description that's here, which it kind of dictates how they're made up, what do they like on the battlefield, all that kind of thing, to kind of determine more how you might create a list for this army. Then there's a story, little short story, about 1,000 words, give or take, that is to build narrative for your army. So there'll be major factions, minor factions. Major factions being the Frontiersmen, the Council, the Free Folk, and Altered, or the Altered. Each major faction, will have 4 sub-factions. Each sub-faction will have its own description, similar to how the major faction has its kind of general idea of what the faction's about, how they're set up. Or each sub-faction's going to have how that sub-faction is set up. How are they like? What are they like? Just day-to-day life. So the council currently has its general description, but does not have its narrative story piece. I'll be probably doing that this episode, writing that out. So you might get some chill lo-fi and I'll watch me write. The Free Folk don't have much yet, and Altered have their narrative short story, but don't have their general piece. Because it's going to be a bit harder due to, story, what are they about, all that kind of thing. This, I liked it when I first wrote it, but I think it needs some work. It feels a bit forced in places. And I've started doing sub-factions. But yeah. So it's a lot of writing. This project's got a lot of writing. It's gonna take a while. And yeah. But it is coming along nicely. It is coming along nicely. So, let's launch into some writing.